Now sit back and prepare to be entertained. Welcome to the Dripping Bucket Podcast.
Alrighty, welcome folks to the Dripping Bucket Podcast with your hosts Krystle Matar and myself, Michael R Fletcher, and we are joined today by Ben Galley, OG self-publishing tycoon, all-around horrendous human. Hi Ben, how you doing, man?
Yes, I'm doing really good. Thanks, Mike. I like that intro. That's probably one of the best intros I've ever had. Yeah, doing well, man. Tired, writing away, you know, the classic, the usual. But it's a sunny day, so it's literally the first time I've seen the sun in about 2 weeks, so that's good.
Yeah, this is you're out in Vancouver, right?
Yeah,
So
it's literally the rainy
you guys
season.
don't usually do
It's
sun
kind
out there.
of
No.
yeah, but somehow the weather's still nicer where you are, because it's like anytime I see pictures of Vancouver as somebody in Ontario, I'm like, you prick. Stop
Yeah.
it.
I
Not
think
you
it literally.
just all Vancouver.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm a prick. It's good.
Yeah, okay.
I think what it was the lowest was minus. I don't even think it hit -5 this winter. I know, which compares a lot to you guys out in the east, but yeah, it's all good. We just get rain, lots and lots of rain.
Yeah. So we had today, we're going to start with, we're just going to talk about Ben's sort of a self-publishing journey. Ben was like, you were a rock star of self-publishing. I think when I first showed up for The Mirror's Truth, you were like,
Ben was already on
you'd
the
already
scene?
been around forever. And I actually have no idea how long. So Ben, when did you actually when did you first self-publish?
December 2009, kind of, as a test run. So you could say 2010 is kind of the usual date, but I think I actually published in just before 2009 ended. And that was the paperback of The Written, my first debut book. But I've been kind of researching and making all the mistakes for about a year, and writing for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years before that as well. So I almost self-published at the start of 2009 with an evil company, one of the Author
one
Solutions.
of the vanity presses?
Yeah, one of the package bastards that we all know and love. I almost fell into that trap of Author House in the UK. And then luckily, that interaction with them kind of showed me there was the self-publishing route, and you could actually do it yourself. Yeah, I was looking through all the stuff they were listing, and I was like, I could do that. I could do that.
Yeah, I actually remember. I think that's one of the first things that came across. Just as I was coming into the scene, it's one of the first ways that I met you specifically, because you'd done a video just doing like a price comparison of this is how much it costs to do it yourself. This is how much it costs to do it yourself, and this is how much they're charging you. And it was just such a well-articulated video of like, no, it's okay. You can actually do it. I know it's scary, but it's time for you to do it. And I thought, and that was part of one of the things that actually convinced me just to take the plunge. So you're having a negative impact on the industry, because now I'm here.
It's all my fault. Yeah, that's
exactly.
I'll take that on. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. It was, I think, in the last, well, roughly speaking, I think in the last 5 to 10 years. Definitely the last 5, self-publishing has become kind of standardized. That's kind of a process that everyone now goes down in roughly the same way. We might use slightly different platforms. We might use KDP Print over Ingram Spark, or we might use BookBaby, Drafted Digital. Certain slight differences, but I think, the knowledge has propagated out to be kind of general and standardized now. And there's a lot of people who are like, self-publishing, like that's the easy part. The marketing and all the other side of things and the writing is still the hard part. But it was a Wild West. But you have to do those
things no matter which side of the publishing world you're on. So you might as well just go for it if you feel like you can.
That's it. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's just kind of, that aspect. I still get questions of how it's done and how to do it the best. And I think, it's become standardized a lot if you're within the industry, but we forget there's some people that they still requires a bit of research. But the research they'll find at least will be roughly along the, a similar route. There's still a lot of bad advice out there. And you should have seen it in 2007 or 2008, and 9. Everyone was literally just like, yeah, use Author House. Author House is great. It's like, oh God, the amount of people that fell into that trap. And there was people that, just wanted to, it was kind of the garage self-publishing movement still, which again is still done. I mean, I've got literally piles of books behind me that I'm going to sell this weekend by hand, but it was perceived that was the only way of self-publishing. And I still sometimes get those questions being like, how many books should I print off on my first run? I'm like, none, apart from like 1 or 2 for you and family. Yeah, don't do that. They're heavy. They're easily ruined.
They cost a lot.
They take up more space than you think. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, it's the Wild West back then, but it was kind of fun. It was scary, but fun.
I can't imagine trying to learn all that stuff without having it all sort of pre-existing. Like when I started in 2016, I think, all the information was sort of already at that point readily available. From
just had to find the right people.
How to lay out your book to all that stuff. So I kind of, there's still like obviously like a lot of research, you need to do. And, even to this day, I think every book kind of looks a little bit better as I go, oh, that's how you do that. Yeah. I learned some tiny little thing like, hey, dude, pay attention to the interior formatting maybe. Like, oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. I only just figured out how to put like I've been using Pages to format ever since 2010 as well. So I do all my own interior print formatting. And then in the last 3 years, I've realized InDesign exists and it's much easier. But yeah, so I think you keep learning all the time, don't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there's more and more software and platforms that are enabling us to make these choices too. Yeah, I can imagine 100%. Learning to do that. Like Mike said, is back when you were starting out, it was very much you trial and error rather than asking somebody who had gone before you. Which mad respect for blazing that trail.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I'm trying to think back into who I actually asked, and there were a couple of people. There was Joanna Penn was publishing around the same time as me, if not slightly before, and there was the Alliance of Independent Authors. Allied, and I got in with them kind of really early on, but it was still a couple of years into my sort of progress. So I'd kind of published 2 books without knowing they really existed or without those initiatives being around. And so, as soon as kind of like we got thrown into this group together and I remember meeting up at London Book Fair in like 2012. I think that's what it was. And it was the first time authors had realized that indie authors could come together and like protect each other and inform each other. And that was really kind of like, they weren't necessarily the very first kind of group like that, but they were the first group for me. And it was just really strange being like, oh, there's Lightning Source exists. Okay, cool. Let's go and use that. And that was pre-Ingram Spark as well, because that was the first version of it, which had been around since the early noughties or late 90s, I think. And so, there was a kind of real eye-opening moment of just being like, oh, I'm not alone. And I may have done this wrong, but this person's done this right. And that's kind of how the information started to become knitted together. And that was really, really useful. And that's, the thing that hasn't changed and got, so much better and just keeps going from strength to strength is the community. Like you guys, obviously, I count you amongst my friends after just meeting you on Twitter, for a couple of years. And that's it though. But that's all it takes. And that's the beauty of the industry is that not being alone. And that has gone completely 180 from when I started out and I literally had no idea and I couldn't talk to anyone. And then slowly over the years, it's become what it is now. And it's almost too many authors to know and to catch up with, which is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. I was going to say that discovery moment of, oh, I'm not alone is so universal. Yeah. And it just, fortunately for us these days, it's a little bit faster. Like once you plug into the community, it's bigger, but definitely I remember, when I was writing, I would look at acknowledgement pages going, how did they get so many people involved? This is crazy.
Yeah.
and then I made one writer friend and then bam, they were everywhere.
Exactly. All you need is one. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Was it? I remember doing the same thing with my acknowledgements, and I actually wondered about. I remember doing this I think it was for my second book, and I remember doing this. Actually, could have been my third or fourth because I'd released them together. Either way, I did an acknowledgements, and I felt like making up people because I was like, I've got like my girlfriend at the time, my friend Charlie, my girlfriend's mum who I like live with. I didn't have an editor. At that point, that was a big mistake I made. So I had no editor. I think I thanked the cover designer, who wasn't even a cover designer. He's just some random Swedish artist. So I literally just like, thanks to my dog. Yeah, that was fun.
Breaking news, you heard it here,
yeah.
folks. Ben Galley says, down with editors.
2010, Ben Galley was literally, I was the poorest of the poor. I mean, I was a music student, which is one of the poorest type of students. And then the music didn't go anywhere. I kind of missed the boat a little bit with the music side.
Player, no less. I mean, like,
I know.
Music students, like, all poor, been there. And then the bass player is like, oh,
like,
yeah.
It's the worst.
The drummer, I think, hierarchy. Probably like, it's getting a little more. Like, drummers are
drums.
Yeah.
You were
I took up the drums,
climbing up the musician social ladder.
I was just like,
first to base.
Yeah, that's it. And then I didn't even think I had $2 to like rub together.
And that went so well that now you're an author, which is famously so much better paid than a musician.
It's great. I know, it's great. Hence the other day I was thinking about going back to music. No, I'm joking. But I am thinking of starting a band. I just don't have the time. But yeah, I remember just literally having no money. And that's why, thankfully, one of the reasons why Author House was a big decision for me. Because they were asking several £1,000s. Yeah, so that was the education, and they kind of gave me almost like a budget, similar to the video you mentioned, Krystle. It's like, this is what they wanted to charge, and this is what they offered. And so I did go through the list and think, well, okay, I can't spend £3,000, even £5,000, I think they wanted at some point, which is just far too much, especially with pounds as well. It's just far too much for
especially
any
15
author.
Years ago, like that was a lot more.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds horrible when you put it all together. 15 years. I feel like the woman out of Titanic. It's been 84 years.
72 years.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's literally, I am Rose from Titanic. But yeah, the kind of price list and budget they gave me forced me to kind of take all of that down. And so yeah, cover design it was literally cover design or editing. But yeah, I paid the price. As we know, we shouldn't try and edit ourselves. As we all know, it's not a good idea, even if you are a professional editor. You're too close to it. And I thought I could do it. And I was wrong. So yeah, my first two books went unedited for a year or two.
It got you in the door, and then you got to circle back with better skills and better connections. So, you sound really regretful of it, but it's better to have taken the shot and gotten somewhere than to have frozen up and never got anywhere because you couldn't afford it at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, and timing was really important as well, because it was back in the wild days of Amazon, which was so good, and I do miss them. It was the days where you could set a free promotion, get to the top of the store on a free promotion where they didn't have two separate ranks, it was just one rank. So there's literally free books counted on the same algorithmic weighting as paid books.
As the paid.
Doesn't matter about price, didn't matter about genres. There were like 5 categories on the store, on the Kindle store. I think literally KDP came out in 2007, like mid 2007. So the platform was like a year and a half old when I started using it. And so yeah, you could switch to free at any time, and that's how I got next to George R. Martin. Me and him were at the top of fantasy. And then I switched back to paid and stayed there, and it was great. I was at the top of Amazon for weeks and weeks. And it was just very odd. But then quickly Amazon were like, oh God, this is not how this should work. Algorithms make it difficult. So yeah, that was fun. Good days. But yeah, it taught me a lot. And it was the best decision I've ever made to publish in general, but specifically and especially to self-publish and become one of us crazy people that are here right now.
It's it's still very indie garage band vibes in self-publishing somehow. Like, even though folks like you are killing it, there's still like that kind of rebel spirit that dragged me in and won't ever let me go.
Yeah, right. I do what I want. No one tells me what to do anything. I want this on my front cover. I can do this on my front cover. Yeah.
I want? I want to pay my mortgage. Yeah. So I'm gonna, maybe I'll do a little bit of what it says.
That's it, right? Maybe a slightly dip a toe in romantasy or a paw and something else. But yeah, that was the thing. I think at the very start, I mean, it still exists now, but at the very start, there was a lot more anti-self-pub as well as anti-trad from the self-pub world. And I've worked with quite a few kind of like the big five or big six is about. How many bigs are we at now? I keep forgetting. They keep
I think it's
4 or 5 now.
Big four.
Like
Yeah.
less
Big,
every
small.
year.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. It was it was kind of like a lot of anti-trad sentiment, and it was kind of that rebel atmosphere was really palpable and really strong. Even when we turned up at London book fairs, the indie authors would kind of sit somewhere else and be like, don't go over them. They're not going to listen to you. They're going to want an agent. You don't need an agent. And it was really kind of like volatile almost. And when I worked for Ally, we had to kind of work with a lot of publishers to like not educate them, but to help them realize that not only ebooks but indie authors are great prospects. And so we did a lot of work with Bloomsbury and other publishers to create self-publishing resources to show them what it was, and it was really fun because I was the watchdog for Ally for a long time, so I was in charge of finding shitty providers and blasting them all over the internet, which was a great job. It really was. I say job. I was a volunteer. It was fantastic. So that's how I came across a lot of the author
really
house.
cathartic.
It was good. Yeah, it was like Writer Beware. I was kind of doing the same thing as that. And so it's literally like, do not use these horrible bastards. And here's why, which was great. But yeah, a lot of the times the horrible bastards were the trads. And it was just, I've never really agreed with that because as we know in the fantasy world, there are a lot of trad pubs that do a lot of good work and, and have been a sort of paragon of quality for a long time. Editing, you're always going to find mistakes. Some covers don't quite hit the mark, but generally it's what indies have been aiming at for the last 20, 25 years. And I think in the last 10, 15, we've really seen indies go, well, actually, I can do this better, both on the editing, the story, and the cover front. So it's never really, for me, been an us versus them, and I don't really like that sentiment. I see it more as an inspiration. But yeah, that was raging in early 2010. And also the anti-indie thing. I once had a guy come up to me at a bookstore signing, and I was in one of the bigger Waterstones. I think I was in either Guildford or Woking Waterstones. Big stores, sold a lot of books that day, which was great. But I had this one stuffy old English gent come up to me, and he picked the book up, and he literally was like, who's the publisher? And I was like, all happy. I had a big grin across my face because I love this question. I was like, me. And he was like, oh. And I'm not joking, just went and walked straight away. No other words, nothing. I was like, that really like shocked me because I was like, that was the first time I'd really seen it where people actually shop by publisher. And this was 2011, 2012, something like that. And I had a couple of experiences like that where people have just said, no, you're self-published, and just wrinkled their noses and walked away. Very bizarre, but yeah, still happens.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's still something that exists, just like this assumption that those of us in self-publishing are settling because none of us are good enough to attract. I lit the fire.
The rage still lives deep down.
Yeah.
But yeah. I know that sentiment.
Yeah.
I shop the first book of most of my series. Like I have an agent and I've had different agents. They all get shopped. And then if and when they don't get picked up, I self-publish them. And then they do really well and tend to make more than I would have got, from a typical sort of a big 4, big 5 advance. Like they've all done the royalties, better than Beyond Redemption did with Harper Voyager. And you're kind of like, and I keep wondering, like, why the fuck do I keep shopping them? But I do.
It's habit now.
There's on some level, like that's still, I guess, the dream in the background.
Redemption for Beyond Redemption.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
thank you, Ben, for laughing at that.
No, it was
Fletcher
good.
let me down.
That was a genuine laugh. Yeah, a guffaw. Yeah, I do wonder because I mean, it's Harper Voyager was one of my kind of like A-list publishers that I used to, really, really wish to be published by. Same with like Galance and Orbit, in the fantasy world, and I just part of me still does. It's gone past the validation, which I think is what a lot of authors seek it for. You know, it doesn't, even if you self-publish and you're successful, for some people it doesn't feel real until they have, you know, letter-headed paper and a signed contract, you know, for a big chunk of money. And that's fine. You know, there's no problem with searching for that. If it is a big advance, that's great. You know, I wouldn't turn that down. But I think for me now, it's just purely a business decision. It's, you know, trying to get more into bookshops, you know, using the channels, not the, you know, publishers necessarily do all the marketing for you. Exactly. You know, things like their access to NetGalley and higher reviewers. High reviewers. Anyway, yeah, other reviewers and things that, you know, might not necessarily touch an indie book. And it's, you know, it's interesting from that point of view in those channels. And that's why I probably would, you know, still seek a traditional deal. But yeah, the us versus them, there's just pros and cons, isn't it? I mean, it's higher royalties or a bigger advance, or no advance and more flexibility, you know?
I remember Dirk specifically saying, I think it was for some convention, he was on a panel about indie versus trad, and he boiled it down so well when he said it's like the difference between being an employee and an entrepreneur. And neither of them are good or bad. Both of them have pros and cons. It's just about which one suits your personality and which one you think you can do best. And that definitely, that's what I see in the scene now that I'm here. Just like there's the hustlers like you who are insane enough to do your own sprayed edges for a Kickstarter and cough up red paint for a couple of weeks. Entrepreneurial spirit.
That did happen,
yeah.
Never again. I'll tell you what, yes, if anyone's listening and just thinking, oh, sprayed edges are fine. Here we go. These are some of the sprayed edges. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it on more than, what did I say to you the other day? I think it was like 4 or 5 books. If you want to spray the edges of 4 or 5 books as a fun hobby on a Sunday afternoon, do it. If it's any more than 5, no. Get the printers to do it or get a professional to do it, because it's not worth it. It's actually it's a lot trickier than I ever thought it would be. And time consuming. But yes, no.
So you're not hand spraying edges anymore. That's what you're telling us.
No, I never want to hand spray an edge ever again. I don't know. I actually kind of got into it after a while. I put like, you know, the 80s fucking ballads in. I was just like, and it was kind of fun. But I think that was the paint fumes getting into my brain, and I was a higher reviewer for a minute. It's definitely, I think you're right in saying the word entrepreneurial, and Dirk is so wise. And I swear he was around as well. He was one of the first people I remember connecting with, aside from Phil Tucker and Dirk. Yeah, he was one of the first, and he's always had that sort of real balanced view to self-publishing, and obviously crushed it himself. And I really like that analogy, because he's right. It's about being an entrepreneur, and it's, you know, taking the power into your hands or your claws. And some people can't, not in a bad way, but some people either don't like that or just can't do it. It's not in their it's just not in their makeup. You know, answering emails and setting time schedules, again, not in a bad way, but it's just maybe not a skill or a strength or even a desire. So I think it does suit a lot of people to go the trad route and have a lot more of things managed for them at the expense of quite a few percentage points. But of course, you know, hopefully getting an advance to offset it. So
make it worth
I mean, that's the thing. There's so many trad authors who have gone indie, and so many indie authors have gone hybrid. I mean, obviously, Mike, you're kind of both. You've got translation deals and audiobook deals. Krystle, same with you in audiobooks and things like that. We are becoming a lot more hybrid all the time, which is fantastic. And I've actually heard of a print only like trad deal the other day, which was great, actually. You know, and I think that is the holy grail for that reason, because it is the best of both worlds. We can shift ebooks, or, you know, in general, indie authors have been shifting ebooks far and above what the publishers have been doing, especially in the early days. And then I don't have the figures in front of me. I'm sure it's kind of equal, but I'm pretty sure indies shift more ebooks easier. But yeah, that's the thing. We've got the flexibility, and I do love that. It gives me I can't imagine and this is why I like being a solo author, and this is one of the reasons why I started self-publishing back in 2010, is because I did want to have all of the control myself. I wanted to literally decide what went on the cover. I wanted to oversee every single little thing. And it just makes me shiver to hear of like misprints or, print runs that have one mistake in them and they've already printed 100,000 copies, or that's too much business for me. That's, I like to be an entrepreneur and stay in my lane. And then there's kind of a level of business above that I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. That's why I have an accountant or a PA or something. I'm out of here, Yeah, I got into this for freedom and just to live my best life, and that's what it is, and that's what we achieved. So why? Yeah, I'm not sacrificing that.
We are at about 25 minutes, which makes this an excellent point in time to wrap this up. So let's call this an episode. And we will be back perhaps next week with Ben, unless he comes to his senses. And
runs away from
no
us.
senses here. Yeah.
No, all right, we're good.
Okay, well, there you go. Thank you very much for coming to chat with us, Ben, and we'll keep you on and make you talk some more.
My pleasure. Yeah, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you.